The truth about a hair transplant, no bullshit edition. Don't be out here getting botched. Warning, some of these images are about to be nasty, but it's important for you to know the risk that you're taking when getting a hair transplant because it's not always peaches and cream. Overharvesting. This is one of the most common things that can go wrong when getting a hair transplant, especially if you end up going to a hair mill. This is when so many grafts have been taken from your donor, leaving it barren and so depleted where it cannot recover. A common misconception is that once those hairs get extracted from the donor, they get replaced by new hairs. This does not happen. You are relying on the remaining of your donor to cover up those scars because once those hairs get extracted, they are moved to the front and they're not growing no new hairs in the donor. But if there's way too many grafts taken from that donor area, it's going to be hard for that donor area to recover. Remember, you have about 5,000 safe grafts in that donor area where it doesn't look damaged after you extract the grafts. However, any more than that, your donor is at risk. But in Big 2025, beard, chest, arm, leg, and yes, even booty hairs can be used to repair an overharvest hair transplant. So while overharvesting isn't the end of the world anymore, you still don't want it to happen to you. Another thing that can go wrong that's out of your control is poor placement. Sadly, this happens when a clinic does not know what the hell they're doing and they're placing grafts anywhere, giving your hair transplant an unnatural appearance. Poor placement is another reason why you want to be very careful if you want to pull your hairline down, because if you put grafts on an area that does not allow hair growth, you will just end up with nasty scarring. Unlike overharvesting, it is harder to repair a hair transplant when the issue comes from the front hairs. You might have to remove grafts, endure additional scarring, or even a lack of blood supply in the area due to overcorrection. All things you do not want to have to deal with. The placement and incision is one of the most important aspects of a hair transplant, so you want to make sure you go to a doctor that you can trust that's going to do it right. Not fully load you with 5,000 grafts in the front and sporadically spread the rest throughout your head, leading to a failed hair transplant with no additional grafts to recover. This is where it gets nasty. The single worst thing that can happen to you when getting a hair transplant is getting an infection. Like I always tell y'all, those first 14 days, please sit your ass down. This happens when open wounds are exposed to bacteria from unsterilized tools or conditions. So, if you get a hair transplant and your head ever looks like one of these, you have an infection. You need to go to the hospital and get treated with antibiotics ASAP. I've talked to some of y'all and you don't want to go to the hospital to get it treated, so I will show you what's going to happen. Scalp necrosis, pretty much dead scalp. This is when an infection has lasted so long that it has spread to additional tissues, causing the scalp to literally die, leaving a war zone behind. Please, go to the hospital. I promise you it's never that serious. Unfortunately, even if treated, infections can have lasting effects where you can literally end up having chunks of flesh falling off your head, which will not only ruin your hair transplant, but your scalp as well. Always remember, this is surgery. You want to go to a doctor that you can trust that will not only perform the procedure successfully, but also care about your well-being after the fact.